Hey everyone, how are you doing today? Welcome. Today we're going to talk about why everyone in America seems to have more money, more things than you. Yes, so why, of course, this stems from perhaps the materialism that exists amongst Americans. We love things. So why is it that Americans have so many things? Why is it that they look so much, let's say, richer than you or than other people from other countries? All right, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Here's why everyone in America seems to have more money than you. We're going to begin in just a second. Before we start, everybody click that subscribe button. And also after you subscribe, make sure you also click the bell, select all, and that way you'll know when we upload future videos. Okay, so let's say hello to our friend and guest. We've got Leon. Leon, how are you?
Good, Ben. How's it going? How's everyone doing? Hey, everyone. What's up?
Doing well, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. All right, so we are talking about why Americans have so many things, so much stuff. Why do they always look like they have so much money? Because of all these things that they have. Now, I think it's no secret that Americans love things, right? We're a pretty materialistic society, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Very materialistic. I mean, we're lucky. We're privileged, right?
Yes, I think that there's this one idea of keeping up with the Joneses, right? Maybe you guys have heard of this. The Joneses being, like an American last name, a surname. It refers to like your neighbors, you're living next door, whatever. So when we say keeping up with the Joneses, we mean basically keeping up with your neighbors or your friends or whatever. Like if they've got it, you're gonna want it because you want to keep up, right? So, what do you think of this idea of keeping up with the Joneses? Did you ever feel like that when you were living in the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm living in Orange County, which is Newport Beach, and it's a very prominent type of city.
Yeah.
You have a lot of celebrities and really high profile, doctors, lawyers, etc. So seeing a lot of, nice cars, beautiful cars, expensive cars, you see like Bentleys, Porsches. I mean, all the normal. I mean, Mercedes-Benz and BMW considered the norm. I
Oh
mean, every
yes.
every
Yeah.
every few
Yeah.
minutes you would see one pass by. So for
Hmm.
me, it's like I had to get one of those, because I love
Right.
cars. So
Right.
I needed to keep up, and also, your lifestyle, the type of brands that you wear in your clothes. So yeah, I felt that way. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. You and I come from an area of the United States that is incredibly image conscious, where you need to look good, you need to have things, and you need to present a certain image. I'm from LA, I'm from Hollywood, and you're from Newport Beach. Newport Beach is money. And so, yeah, everywhere you look, people are dressed well, they look good, they take care of themselves, they're driving nice cars, all of that. And so there is that pressure. Even if you don't, I think that even if you don't go into it thinking, oh, I just have to do what my friends are doing, even if you're not really thinking that, you see enough of this around, you see enough of success around you, you just can't help but feel like, I kind of want to feel like I belong. So maybe I need to get a Porsche also. Maybe I also need to go to a certain school or whatever, all of those things. And so the pressure naturally exists, I think, when you are around people who at least appear to be very successful, right? Because we're a product of our environment in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. And you become more driven, and it's kind of like a competitive thing. Like, I want that, I need that, I can get that. So you end up finding a good job because you want to be, keeping up with the Jones, right? You want to
Yeah,
make sure that you have that nice car, that nice house, live in a nice, prominent neighborhood areas. So yeah, you become more driven than normal people. Um, the ambition, chasing that dream. You want to be in a high level. So yeah, it just rubs off on you. Yeah.
totally, totally. And you just don't want to feel left out. And I think that that is where the whole we want things, or that is where the materialism, that's where it comes from, is because we're around. And I think it's maybe unique to where we're from. There are certain cities in the U.S. that are like that, like where you're from, Newport Beach, and I'm from LA, and like places like Miami, places that are very flashy, very showy. These are
Mhm.
places where people really like to show off and flex and what they've got, or maybe it's just a facade, right? We don't okay, this that we're going to get into that. A facade meaning it's just a show, it's not real. But regardless, people put up a good show in Southern California, where they look a certain way and they have certain things, and so that's where it comes from. Is that because so many people have these things, we all strive to have it as well, and people who don't have it, they really want it, and they'll do what it takes. And you know, Americans are very capitalistic, and so there are ways for you to get things, for Americans to get things, even if maybe you can't really afford them. And so that's kind of the meat of our conversation. So you want an expensive car. You have some money, but you really don't have the money for a Porsche, for a Bentley, or whatever. But in America, there are ways, right? There are ways.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly. You don't need all that cash as long as you have good credit and your credit is excellent. You're gonna get that dream car, whether it's a Porsche or maybe a Bentley or something like that, even though you're not super rich. Yeah.
absolutely. Right. So Americans are really good at helping people get things. So financing, right?
Hmm.
Easy financing based on credit. Credit is based on your record, basically your record of having borrowed money, your record of having spent on a credit card and having paid it back on time. So there's a record. It's called your credit report, and there's a number, there's a score. So if your credit score is high, meaning it's above a 750 and above, or maybe even 730, something like that and above, the maximum being 850, 850. So, but I think if you're over 720 or something like that, you're going to be able to get whatever loan you need. And so that translates to being able to get things like a car on financing. So let's say, Leon, you want a $250,000, can even get, no, I think they're probably 300 by now. You want a $300,000 Bentley. You don't need to have $300,000, do you? You can just
No,
lease the car, right? Tell us about
exactly.
why Americans love leasing a car. Leasing being like sort of a long-term rental, typically like 3 years. You don't own the car. You can buy it at the end, but you're essentially just paying for a monthly payment that is much lower than if you were to finance 300,000. But okay, tell us about it, Leon.
Yeah, I mean, as far as leasing the car, it's like what Ben said, it's like renting a car. So the beauty of leasing a car is you don't have to pay those extra charges like to get maintenance and all that. I mean, a lot of the maintenances are free, that they handle it because they want that car to be in good maintenance because when they take it back from you, they're gonna sell that car. They don't want you like ruining that car. So they are willing to do the maintenance. Of course, the wear and tear on certain parts of the things, you have to use your own money out of that. Like, for example, the tires depends on how much you drive. I mean, the best thing too about the lease is you don't have to get insurance. They put that insurance built into that lease if you don't want to use your own insurance. So, and the beauty of it too is like you change your car. I mean, every year or even every 2 years, you get a new car. And for
Yes.
me, that's like the beauty of leasing a car. If you buy a car, you're stuck with it maybe 4 years, 5 years, mostly 5 years. And then
Hmm.
after that, the depreciation of the car. So if you're going to sell it back, you already lost money. But, you're not going to get your money back. So for me, it's like if you lease a car, hey, I'm getting new cars every year, the smell of that new car and the
Yeah.
drive of that new car. I mean, it's phenomenal. Yeah. What do you think? What's your take on that?
I like the idea of leasing because I don't want to have an old car where I have to worry about maintenance and things going wrong. And yeah, leasing a car is just basically an extended rental period, usually 2, 3 years. So every 2, 3 years, you can get a new car, no problems, right? It's perfect. You have a nice new car every few years. And the monthly payments on a lease is typically lower than if you were to finance that same car. And so, and what's also great about leasing a car in America is that if your credit, once again, your credit score, if your credit is good, that means you're not an at-risk buyer, a lender, excuse me, lendee. You will be able to lease a car without a down payment even. So theoretically, you could lease that Bentley and put no money down, and you just make your monthly payment. It's literally just a rental. Now, this also is available in Europe as well, where I live now. And like, for example, I see these lease deals on a car in Spain, and I'm like gasping, like, what? Because they want thousands of dollars for a down payment, whereas in America, we just a lot of times you don't need to give a down payment. You don't need to put any money
Hmm.
down, because if you're renting a car, why would you give them $10,000 to start, right? But that's how they
Yeah.
do it here in Europe. So, but when you have, for example, if you require such a big down payment, that prevents a lot of people from acquiring this thing. So once again, in America, we make it easier for you to get things. We make it easy for Americans to get things. So then, you don't have to put that huge down payment, right? And the monthly payments are reasonable. And so that's a reason why you might think, oh, Americans, oh my God, you guys have so much money. You're all driving such expensive cars. I'll tell you, most of the time, a lot of the times, they're leased cars. But that's just how we do it, right?
Yeah, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, you have your own business. I mean, they just lease the car because they get some tax write-off
Oh,
or
for
some
sure.
adjustment,
Yeah.
amortization.
Hmm.
So it's great. And you see these like people driving really expensive
Yeah.
cars, but
Hmm.
actually it's not in their own personal account. It's actually in their business and it
Yeah.
benefits them. And
Yep.
for me, I never leased a car. I always bought a car. But if I do go back to the US, I'm leasing a car. I'm not buying a car anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a different kind of way in buying it because at that time my ex-wife and girlfriend and wanted me to buy the car, but no, I think this time around I'm not buying a car. I'm leasing a car. It's
Yeah.
like what Ben says, and you don't even have to put in a lot of down payment. You can just put in like a small, like 2,000, 3,000. Again, it really depends on your credit. If you have
Yes.
excellent credit, you can
Or
have
nothing. Yeah.
zero down. Exactly.
Hmm.
Um, and the beauty about the United States is everyone, like these salespeople, they want to make a commission. They want to make money, and they're
Uh-huh.
gonna do
Right.
whatever it can to satisfy you because they want that sale. So
Yep.
even though you're having difficulty buying it, they're gonna go around, go find ways just to sell it to you because they want to make profit too. They're
Yeah.
driven. They want to make that money, and it's totally different than people from other countries where they're not as driven
For
because they
sure.
may not get commission, etc. Yeah.
Right. You have hungry, aggressive salespeople in America, in these car dealerships. So they want you to get that car. They want to make it happen. And so they'll help you make it happen some way, somehow. They'll make it happen for you. Whereas, yes, like in other countries where I've shopped for a car in Spain, I've shopped for a car in Italy, and it's not like that. You definitely don't see that. You don't see that hungry salesperson. You don't see that salesperson being driven. You don't see them like, yeah, I'll make it happen because, you know, Americans are go-getters. They're going to make it happen. I don't see that. I don't see that attitude. I don't see that I'm going to make it happen here in Europe when I was shopping for a car. They kind of don't even behave like salespeople. The attitude is very much like, yeah, if you want it, yeah, sure. Why don't you think about it? Why don't we talk about it next week or tomorrow? Oh, no, no, no. In America, there's no the salespeople. They don't even want you to leave the
No.
dealership. They want it. They are so they're really good at moving things forward. They're good at moving things along. They're really good at helping you get that thing, as opposed to when I
Hmm.
was car shopping in Europe. It was very much like, why don't you think about it? Why don't I get back to you? Why don't no, no, no. That's not how it is in America. We make it happen, right?
Exactly. I mean, with my experience, I mean, here's a good thing. Every time you go to a car dealer and people just say, "Hey, can I help you? Are you looking for a particular car or something like that?" No, you just say, "Oh, no, I'm just looking." That's the magic word. When you
Yeah.
say "I'm looking," what their intention is, they're gonna try and sell it to you because they know you're not there to buy a car, so they're gonna go
No.
out of their way. I
Hmm.
mean, you go there to look at a car. By the time you leave, you're actually driving a car home.
Sure. Yeah.
That's how
That's the
quickly
idea.
it is.
That's the
Yeah,
idea.
and that happened to me. I mean, I go to Fletcher Jones, Mercedes in Newport Beach, and I go there and they ask me, and I said, no, I'm just looking. And all of a sudden, they're showing me around and try to make me sit down and try to fill up a form and get authorization. They pull up my TRW or see my credit score, and once they find out your credit score, Oh my gosh, you see them running around talking to the manager. They're gonna try and make a deal.
Uh-huh.
They're gonna show you all kinds of cars, and they're gonna say, they'll negotiate with you. And next thing even if you don't have to have a down payment, if your credit is really good, they're
Yes.
willing to take a small amount. And like
Yeah.
I said, they're gonna do whatever it takes to have you drive that car out of the lot, you know.
Yes. So that's why, and that you see, and that is why Americans have things like this. We have such nice cars if we want them, right? Whereas in
Hmm.
other countries, it may not be so easy to get uh, a nice car. But let's talk about other things too, so that we're
Yeah.
not just making it into a car podcast. Like for example,
Hmm.
people who are into fashion, women who are into expensive handbags and things like that. Now, did you know that there are websites that allow you to do like a share? Like I think I've heard of these websites where you can get high-end fashion, like really expensive designer brands, where they send it to you, you can wear it, you're renting it, and then you can send it back. Same thing with women's handbags that are thousands of dollars. You can rent them, and you can. So this is another way Americans always look rich or wealthy, right? Is that they have all these things, but you don't know if they're renting that handbag, right? You don't know if the because there's the apps that allow you to do that.
Wow, that's new to me. I never heard that. I didn't know that they were actually doing that now, where you can actually rent out the handbags, those really high-end handbags with the names, the brand names. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. That's insane. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's not crazy.
Yeah.
Because Americans are so image conscious. They want all the nice stuff, even if they can't technically afford to buy these things. But so they can rent it. Or I've even heard of people who will buy expensive clothes, and they might wear it or whatever, and then they'll say, "Oh, I always buy this brand because I know that has good resale value," and then they'll resell it on eBay or whatever other uh,
Mm.
site. So that's what some Americans do as well. They use it and then they resell it, and so they paid for was that what I call it depreciation or whatever. And so that's a fraction of what it would cost if they were to actually buy that $30,000 purse, that $50,000 watch or whatever, you know?
Yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, the beauty about this too is like what you were saying, renting out these handbags and things like that. But when it comes to like buying, I mean, we can pretty much buy everything because of the credit card, right? Because we use the
true,
credit
true.
card to buy anything, and it seems like
Yes,
we're rich or we can afford things. No, but we put ourselves in debt. That's the
yes, that's
problem.
true. That's
That's the
true.
biggest thing.
Credit card debt in America is a real problem because most Americans have credit cards. Uh, And what people do is they buy things, even though they don't really have the money, they'll just charge it, they'll put it on the credit card, and then they'll just pay a little bit each month. The problem when you do that is that, you're just paying interest. You're never really going to pay off that amount. But a lot of Americans live like that. They max out all their credit cards. The credit cards is spent to the maximum limit, and then they just pay a small amount each month. And so that's a problem. But again, it enables Americans to have things. All of a sudden, they're like going on a luxurious vacation is because maybe they put it on their credit card, right? Maybe they're taking a year to pay it off. Who knows? But Americans being so capitalistic, we have ways of indulging in people's passion for wanting and getting things.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you see the people buying like brand names like Gucci, Prada, Louis
Yeah.
Vuitton, that kind of
Yes.
stuff. And,
Yeah.
the clothes, jewelry. I mean, they buy like Rolex watches. Depends on what your credit limit is. But
Yeah.
people who has a high credit limit, even though they're not really rich, they just have high credit limits. They'd be buying like these expensive things. Like I said, Rolex watch. Like go travel, like Brent said. I mean, go travel places, and it's insane. It's crazy. And next thing you know, you're like 10,000 in debt or 20,000 in debt, and you're just paying the monthly, and you got other expenses. So they're just
Yes.
making ends meet, right?
Yeah, exactly. And credit card companies are smart too. They have gimmicks to get you to use the credit card. Like they give you points, they give you rewards. And Americans are really into the whole credit card points thing because, they can then use points to maybe take vacations, get hotel rooms, whatever, right? Those points. Now, of course, the whole points thing is just a very, very small, maybe it's like a 1% of your spending, right? So if you spend $100, you get 1 point. 1 point obviously not going to get you anything. 100 points won't get you anything. It'll cost you thousands of points to get like a hotel room or whatever. But people are really into that, and there are signing bonuses. So when you apply for a credit card and you get approved, they might give you bonus signing bonus 50,000 points. So then you're like, wow, 50,000 points. That's like, that's like a round trip ticket on whatever to Europe or whatever. And so you're going to sign up for that credit card, and that's how it starts, right? So again, Americans know how to get you hooked on things like a credit card so that you then use it to buy things that maybe you can't afford. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And this is the problem too with us Americans. I mean, it's part of our culture. I mean, we are the number one most consumers out there that buys a lot of things. I mean, there's no other consumer countries out there that spends like Americans do, and we just like to buy things. Why do we do that? Because we get a lot of things that's available, like sales. You can buy, for example, you can buy like maybe an Adidas shirt or something like that for $5 because they had it, so far discounted that they need to get rid of their inventory to bring in, more items in their stores. So they're
Yes,
selling at maybe at a loss, but to you,
sure.
you might say, "Wow, how are they making profit?" Well, they're making profit based on the new items that they're selling. So even though they're selling it at a loss, they're still making a lot of profit, and this is how a lot of businesses work. And we are just the number one buying consumer out there, and that's why a lot of foreign companies wants to export and import it in the US because
Hmm.
we're the number one shoppers. That's why you see everything that you can, whether it's food, whether it's electronics or anything like that, cars, automotive, it comes to United States. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The U.S. is a very important market because we have a lot of people. We have a lot of people with a lot of money, and also we have people that don't have a lot of money, but they still spend. We have a lot of spenders. Let's put it that way in America, and that's why it's such an important market.
Yeah,
Um,
and the thing too, like you just said, a lot of us Americans, a lot of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
mhm.
They're not having any savings account.
That's
That's the difference
true.
between a lot of people from other countries. It's like, why does American do that? I mean, a lot of people in other countries, they're not spending, all of their money. They're just spending what in their needs, right? In their
Hmm.
means to day to day. So whatever that they can save, they save. So they have this kind of mindset. But we Americans, we don't save because we have a lot of expenses, and also part of that is we're part of our culture, as I said, we like to shop. So we don't have much savings left. We're just, paycheck to paycheck. I'm not saying all, but I'd say a lot of us are like that.
Yeah,
Maybe the majority. Yeah.
yes, yes, that is true. And it doesn't really matter how much you make; it's how much you keep, right? Because I mean, I knew people who, they were very successful lawyers. They were making several million dollars a year is not bad. It's not bad at all. But they would be broke at the end of every month, broke,
Yeah.
because
Wow.
everything was spent. Even though they were making 10 million a year, I knew a guy who was making 10 and broke. Always at the end of
Wow.
each month, sometimes he would bounce checks and things like that. And then for those of us who are not making 10 million a year, you're looking at somebody who's making 10 million a year. You're like, how can you possibly be broke if you're making 10 million a year? It's because,
Mhm.
again, Americans, they want to look successful, they like to spend. And so once again, it doesn't matter. I would argue that depending on your profession, there's even a greater pressure to spend, because if everybody in your profession has those things, then you're going to be pressured into having those things as well. And they did a study that American professionals, it's very hard for American professionals like doctors and lawyers, because these are people who live in an environment with others like just like them, who have things. They have the nice house, they have the nice car. So everybody who's a lawyer, who's a doctor, they feel like they also have to have the nice car, the nice house, the luxury vacation. So they have to keep up with, again, keeping up with the Joneses, right? Trying to match your peers. And so a lot of professionals, believe it or not, like lawyers, doctors, yeah, they make good money, but they don't necessarily have a lot of it because they have to spend so much of what they make to keep up appearances. We say keep up appearances.
And one thing too, I do want to add is that the things that we're talking about like major cities like LA, because
Oh
LA is
yes.
Hollywood,
Yeah.
right? And New
Right.
York City or Chicago, these Dallas, all of these cities and San Francisco, those are the ones that needs to keep up with the Joneses and all
Hmm.
of the spendings and materialistic and things. But not all Americans are like that. Like for example, if you talk about Idaho or Alabama or
Hmm.
maybe Kentucky, maybe that's something different. They may not have the same kind of mindset or trying to keep up with the Jones. They're just like, your average Joe where they don't even want to spend that much, just a t-shirt and jeans. So again, the things that we're talking about are major cities and the metropolitan cities. Yeah.
Yes, and it really again, it's where you live. It's the type of work you do. Like for example, I've heard a lot of people saying like, yeah, I have to maintain a certain image, otherwise other people are not going to want to do business with me because it doesn't build trust. If I'm seen, okay, I've literally heard this said to me. If I'm seen driving around in a Toyota, people are going to think I'm unsuccessful and they're not going to want to do business with me. I have to drive a Mercedes. It's window dressing. Have you heard something like this before?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true though. Yeah.
Yes, it's terrible, but it's true. This is why it forces Americans to have to look a certain way. They have to look wealthy, even if they're not, because otherwise you won't even have that chance of getting there. So let's talk more about this. What you've heard this before, and what did you think, or what do you think about this idea?
I mean, it's terrible, but it like again, like you mentioned, it depends really on your profession. I mean, if you're as an attorney or as a doctor and you're driving like one of these, Honda Civic, I mean, that's not
Yeah.
gonna fly. Other people are
No.
just gonna stereotype you and say, well, what are you doing? Are you sure you're a doctor? I mean,
Yeah. You
what's
must not
going
be
on,
very
right?
good.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yes.
some people too, I mean, like an average Joe or something like that will end up doing it because they can't get a date, or maybe the
Oh,
girl doesn't want to
right.
date them because,
Yes.
oh, you're driving a Civic? No, I don't want to be seen in a Civic. No, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm not going to date you. That's also one of the bad things too. Yeah.
Now that I think also is cross-cultural. I think that this probably does happen in other countries as well, where when it comes to like dating and choosing partners, I think that some people do want to, look like they have things. They want to look like they have money because, when it comes to, I mean, it's no secret that when women look for partners, and they look for partners with resources, right? And I'm not saying that women are just looking for guys with money, but look, think about it. If they're going to be having a baby, they want to know that you can take care of the baby, right? It's just basic.
Yeah.
uh I think this is even the case with animals. When they look for mates, they want to look for someone that they believe to be a partner they believe to be strong and will take care of their offspring. And when it comes to humans, that translates to financial resources. At least that's a not maybe 100%, but that's a big component of it.
Yeah, they want an alpha. They want somebody that can take care of them, protect them. I mean, it just goes down to the human nature and animal instinct. So, they want to be protected. It's like a jungle outside, right? I mean,
Sure.
you literally have a lot of predators out there. So they want to make sure that their family is protected and support them in the long term, right? So
Yeah.
it's not something short term. They want to have that kind of lifestyle too. They want enjoyment. They don't want to struggle. They don't want to have hardship, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
some people will leave. Some people in the date, they may say, "So how much do you owe?" Or, "Well, can I see your TRW? What's your score?"
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
the
Your credit.
crazy ones, the insane ones. But yeah,
Right.
that does happen. Yeah.
That does happen. And I think to to an outsider, to somebody who's from another country and they're looking at Americans, they're like, oh, I'm dating an American, but they're not from the U.S. And they're thinking, wow, there's so much abundance. I mean, look at this American. He has all these things, nice cars, a house, and all that. But look, you don't know how he got these things. Yeah, yes, of course, there are many Americans who are legitimately wealthy and secure. But then there's a population of Americans who look exactly the same. However, when you peel back the layers of the onion, they're not actually that. But for an outsider, you look at us and you think, oh, all Americans are, oh my gosh, you guys are so rich. And they're thinking, oh, I want to marry an American. I want to move to the US. I want to live out the American dream. Look at how you all live. But again, Yes, sometimes it's true. They truly are living in abundance, and other times they are living with the veneer of abundance, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of foreigners or a lot of people outside of the U.S. Think that money grows on trees in the U.S. and everybody is rich, but it's not. And of course, that's where you see a lot of women or men want to marry an American because
Yeah,
they think, they're rich, like money grows on trees. But
yeah,
when they find out, but a lot of them also wants to marry American because they want to get that visa, that permanent, so they can have the opportunity, chase their dreams. You do
hmm,
have some people like that, but it's insane. I don't know what else to say about it. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
but getting a visa and all that, but that's another topic.
That is.
Bridesmaid and this and that. But in the U.S., I mean, just because an American's there and thinking that wow, he must have his own car or he must own his house and he must live in a nice place. It's just the standard of living, the lifestyle, cost of living too. So we get that benefit because of the United States, but a lot of them you can think that they may be rich, but they're actually broke Romeos, right? Yeah.
That's true. That's true. But I think also that's why America looks like that bright, shiny object because yeah, a lot of times people do look like they're doing well, but you don't know if they really are, right? But certainly we all we know is what we see. And so if that's what you see that Americans have all these things and you're thinking that's why Americans always look so wealthy, rich, whatever. Um and then the last thing I want to touch on is another reason why maybe Americans have so many things is because I think that we're so again materialistically driven that sometimes we're willing to hustle, we're willing to work really hard, extra jobs, whatever, side hustle, in order to get that thing, right? Um,
Hmm.
in order to get that nice car, even if or that nice house, because I've heard people say to me that yeah, so you have this nice house, but then well, you don't even have time to be in the house because you're working so hard, right, to pay for it.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
that.
And here's the crazy part. But before I say about the crazy part is, I'll go ahead and let Ben talk about, the subscription and, following and following smart and easy English. So I'll have Ben discuss that.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So you're listening to a podcast where we're talking about why Americans always look so much, oh, I suppose, richer, like they have so much more money than you or than people from other countries. Why do we always look so, I suppose, rich? Um, and we're sort of breaking down the truths behind that. Um, So thank you for listening. Please give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe. Click that subscribe button and also make sure to click the bell. Very important. Click the bell, select all, and that way YouTube will show you future videos that we upload. All right, so thank you for joining. And we're now talking about Americans being so materialistic that we're willing to do anything to get these things, these objects, these car, nice clothes, nice house. We're willing to maybe work harder, work really hard, maybe to our detriment, right? Maybe the lack of work-life balance because we want things, so we're willing to work crazy hours, have a side hustle, another job, whatever it is that we're sacrificing. But it's not uncommon for Americans to work crazy hours or have a side hustle, is it, Leon?
Yeah, exactly. And here's the crazy part that I was mentioning, like about since we're talking about that debt. I mean, can you believe that almost half of Americans consider themselves broke? Like,
Wow.
broke Romeos, broke Juliet. That's like about 48% or 49% of the population or people, Americans are like about 49% are considered broke. And
Mm,
about two-thirds or two-thirds of like living in paycheck to paycheck, as I mentioned earlier, about 66% of the Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Isn't
mm.
that insane? That's
That's
like
a
crazy.
stunning statistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Hmm.
is.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is a lot of times, a lot of objects, a lot of things that people want that are desirable happen to be American products, right? Uh,
Yes.
like we want the latest iPhone, we want the latest Apple computer. And see, another reason why Americans always have these things is also keep in mind they're a lot cheaper when you buy them in America. And I now know this good and well because
Hmm.
I live in Europe, and you know this as well, Leon, because you live in Brazil and you know how much American things cost. And the
Yes,
American things are some of the things that the world wants, right? Like the electronics and
yes,
all that. And so
yes.
keep in mind that now for an American to have an iPhone, it didn't cost nearly as much as what you might have paid for it either.
Yeah. Yeah, like here's a funny thing. I mean, if you're like in Brazil or other parts of the country, in order for you to buy the the iPhone, you probably have to pay cash, 100% cash, right?
Oh,
I mean, if
right.
you're
Yeah.
gonna pay like credit cards or something like that in your country, you're
Hmm.
actually paying maybe two or three times what we're paying in United States. So
Okay.
when you go to you visit the United States, you actually have to
Hmm.
buy it in cash because they're not gonna accept your credit card, right? So you got to pay cash, but you're gonna have a huge discount or sale. So when you look at an American, say, "Wow, how can all these Americans have iPhones?" You know, everywhere you go, there's like all these brand new iPhones. Where because of the carriers, the type of carriers we have, like say AT&T or T-Mobile, where they
Hmm.
give us this kind of financing. So if we have our old iPhone, we trade it in, and then we just pay for the new phone, and we're not paying like pay up front like 1,200 or 1,500. No, they break it out, and we're paying like minimum. So we're paying like maybe $50 a month, or maybe
Hmm.
even depends,
Yeah.
right? $70
Yeah.
a month.
I've
That's
seen those
nothing to us
plans. Yeah.
Americans. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Do
it's
you
not that
rem-
we're rich, it's that we just, they give us that financing, and that's why you
Yes.
see everybody with an iPhone. Yeah.
Because once again, like we talked about earlier, they make it easy for Americans to get things, right? Like
Yes.
example, financing. But do you remember, many years ago, where you would sign a contract 2 years with a cellular carrier, and because you signed the contract, which means you promised to be with them for a minimum of 2 years, they would give you a phone, right? They would give you a
Hmm.
phone, or
Yeah, a free
they
phone.
would, yeah, free phone. This was before iPhones were in existence. But even when the
Hmm.
iPhone came into existence, you would get a
Yes.
substantial discount on an iPhone if you signed like a 2 year contract. Like it might be half price, or it might be a third the price, or something like that.
Like if you get a second phone, they get 50% off or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah. So again,
Hmm.
we make it easy for you. I remember getting a new iPhone. This was years ago from Verizon. That's one of the major
Mm.
cellular carriers. And I
Hmm.
got the phone, and they said, because you signed a contract with us, you you can buy an iPad for, I don't know, like
a hundred
really, I
bucks.
mean, really cheap. It was really cheap, maybe half off or something. So then, of course, you're like, well, at half price, okay, I'm not. Give me one of
Hmm.
those, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
again, this is how Americans always are able to get things, because there's always these promotions and gimmicks and this and that, and they make it so easy to get things, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and when you buy your phone, they literally give you a lot of things. You get a free case, you get the
Yeah,
screen protected screen guards. I mean, they'll throw in whatever they can just for you to get the iPhone. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they'll give it for you for free. So imagine
yes,
you're getting things for free, and it entices you to buy that new phone. Yeah.
yeah. And I remember years ago where I would sell my old iPhone, and I'd get the new one. And when you factor in how much you were able to sell your old iPhone for, then you're really paying very little for the upgrade. So that there's another way that Americans are able to get things all the time, because there's so many levels of this economy. You know what I mean? There's
Hmm.
the new thing. There's like the newest and the latest economy, and then there's the sort of the used items economy. And so there's so many ways where people can there, and there's so much turnover. There's so many ways where people can get things. So
Yeah, and
people,
the things
I knew people that did that. They would sell their phone and apply that money toward the new one.
Yeah. And the things doesn't even have to be iPhone, cars. I mean, it could
Yeah,
be anything, television, appliances, kitchen appliances,
sure.
everything. They're gonna find a way to make that sale and give you whatever they can in order to for you to leave that you actually purchased it. Yeah. That's how
Yeah, it's like
driven they are. Yeah.
it's all like buying and selling and trading, and Americans are movers and shakers like that. They want things, and so they're going to find a
Hmm.
way to get them. And I think that's also just part of the American spirit, is that because we want things, we
Hmm.
are agile, we're smart, we're clever, we're going to find a way to get them. Whereas like in maybe in some other countries, people are just like, no, I'm not, I don't need it, and so I'm not going to I'm
Yeah.
not gonna, I'm not gonna get too creative about. I think that in a way, though, I suppose the one good thing that comes out of this, of our materialism, is that it forces us to be creative. For those of us who actually can't afford the things that we want, it compels creativity, and that is a good thing.
Yeah, it's like us being a kid in a candy store. I mean, all of these candies all over we can choose, and we can't say no to. But how about you, Brent? I mean, you're living in Southern Europe. I mean, because you're from LA, have you brought that materialistic back to Southern Europe? Are you kind of like, I don't want to use the word brainwashed, but are you kind of enticed in having that, I need to get this brand name, like whether it's Adidas or Nike or maybe a Gucci or a Prada, that kind of thing? I mean, did you kind of bring that? I mean, how are you with that in Southern Europe?
No, not so much here, because I feel like it's way more low key. I mean, even in the really wealthy areas, it's really different. I think that well, it's really interesting. It really depends, because in the classy, wealthy areas of Europe, people are pretty low key. I mean, you can tell who's wealthy just by the way they move, the way they talk. I think those things are more important. If you want to convey wealth and culture, those are more important. Um, but what's very interesting is what I've seen is that people who, and I guess this is sort of the case sometimes in the US as well, but I really see this in Europe, where people who are super flashy with the cars here, those are the people that tend to be very déclassé and kind of trashy. It's those people that drive the AMG Mercedes.
Hmm.
It's not the really wealthy people that are very showy, but it's the ones from maybe more, I suppose, disadvantaged corners of Europe that come to places like Milan, and then they want to show off. But you can tell the cloth that they were cut from, and you can tell that
Hmm.
this is a new world to them, and that's why they're very showy. It's different. I think that for the most part, people here are very very low key, and also expensive cars here are not like in Southern California. Now, you know this to be a fact, because in Newport Beach, I mean, every 2 seconds there's a $200,000 Bentley driving by. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And same thing within
exactly.
Hollywood. But here, when now it's gotten to the point now when I see a Porsche 911, I'm like, oh, that's special. Whereas in LA,
Yeah.
nobody, like there's so many
Hmm.
Porsche 911s, you won't even stand out. Nobody will even turn their head in Hollywood for a Porsche 911. I know we're so jaded like that because we're so used
Yeah.
to it and desensitized. But here in Europe, yeah, when I see a 911 now, I'm like, wow, that's really nice. Whereas in LA, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad that you have a 911, because I would be really offended if I had to look at a Honda. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And that's so true because in the United States, especially in LA, you're driving a Bentley, you're driving a really like 200, $300,000 Mercedes Benz,
Yeah.
BMW. I mean, a Porsche that you mentioned. I mean,
Yes.
you're driving these Maserati, you're not going to get any head turns. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
Maserati, oh, it's a Bentley. But the thing that you're going to get a head turn is like when it gets to the really high end, like a Ferrari, a
Yes.
Lamborghini,
Yes. Yes.
a Bugatti. These are the things that we're really
Yes.
going to say, wow. But other
Yes.
than those other cars, like Aston Martin, it could be
Yeah.
a 50-50, But the
Yeah.
rest of
Well, the
them, it's like,
exotic brands,
no
the
big deal.
exotic brands
Yeah.
you will, but no, the German brands you won't. You won't.
Yeah.
People don't care
Hmm.
about the German brands. It's just status quo in Southern California.
Yeah.
Um, So no, to answer your question, no, I don't feel the pressure to keep up with the Joneses. I feel like it's really low key. In fact, if anything, I've gotten used to it. Okay, but when I first moved here, I thought, oh my God, everybody has such crappy cars, because I was so
Right.
used to the abundance in LA, where everybody had a nice car. And so, in comparison, people have really crappy cars here, to be honest. But now I don't care, but it's
Hmm.
different. It's very much a different world.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, the you can tell from the people who's rich and who's not. I mean, these people who aren't rich is most like the social climbers. They care what other people think, or they want to show it. Flashy, want to show their wealth and or not their exact wealth, but they want to show that, hey, I kind of fit in. But the wealthy, they really don't care. They don't care what you're driving, what your
Yes.
appearance or anything like that. They
Mm.
know they're wealthy and they really don't pay attention. I mean,
They
these are
don't.
how you can really identify the people, the social climbers, or the gold diggers versus people who are wealthy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I knew a woman, her parent of one of my friends. They were wealthy. They really were. And it
Hmm.
came time for her to buy another car. Every time she would get another car, it would be a Mercedes E-Class. And I suggested to him to say, "Why don't you tell your mom to get the S-Class? It's so much nicer." And then
Hmm.
I got to talking to her, and then she said, "Oh, no, 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 I couldn't afford an S-Class. I could not afford it." But that's so interesting, is because they are seriously wealthy. The woman could buy the dealership, but she's just like, "No, no, no, no,
Hmm.
no, it's just too much for me." And
Hmm.
she would always just drive a very low key, not
Hmm.
upper, not the high end E class, even just your standard E
Hmm.
350, not even with the big wheels. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
this
that's
woman
nice. I like that.
was totally super wealthy. Everywhere she
Hmm.
went, people loved her, and like she was very
Hmm.
restrained in those things, but she was a big tipper. And
Hmm.
when people are big tippers and they will tip
Yes.
anybody that says hi to them, they're doing all right, right? And but
Yes.
meanwhile, she has no need to show off. You would never see a
Hmm.
label on her.
Hmm.
She's just not like that type, but that's just how people are who are accustomed. When you come from abundance, you don't need to show off at all, because it's become normalized for you. It's
Hmm.
people where,
Hmm.
if it's new to you, then you feel like, oh, I need to show off because it's so new, it's so amazing. But for people who've really
Hmm.
had it for a long time, what's to show off? I mean, I've lived with this my whole life.
Yeah, and that's the funny part. I mean, these super wealthy, they really don't wear these name brands and
No,
Gucci, Prada, and really
no,
flash
no,
it. No, they
no,
they
no, we
basically
hate
don't
that.
wear any brand. They don't wear
No,
any brand, and
I
they
hate
just like the
brands.
quality. Yeah, they just wear the
Exactly.
quality. Yeah.
I hate brands that are showy. I don't ever want to have like one of those luxury logos. Like people wear
Mm.
these t-shirts that say Gucci, or these
Uh,
the worst offenders are the ones that wear these men that wear these belts that have the big H. It's gold, for Hermes. They have
yeah.
these, oh my
Yes.
God, it's so terrible. I wish people would give these new money people, a lesson in style. Please do not wear anything that shows a logo. That has the opposite effect. It doesn't make you look wealthy. It makes you look poor.
Yeah. And then actually, you're doing a free advertisement. So why are you going to advertise? You're not even getting paid by these,
Oh, well, yeah, that
these
too.
these
Yes.
companies, these brands. So why would you even want to advertise it? And I mean, it's insane. What the most important part is really is the quality. You want a good
Yeah,
quality of clothes. Yeah. And I
exactly.
guess you're like that in the US. You weren't flashy. You weren't like
No,
wearing these
no.
name brands, things like
The
that.
no, the only thing that you could say that I'm flashy about, and I do have an excuse for my ways, is that I was really into expensive cars. But my
Mm,
excuse is that I actually am a car lover and I'm quite knowledgeable about cars. So I'm
hmm.
not,
Hmm.
so that's my excuse. I just
Yes.
really love cars. But because there are some people who will drive a very expensive car. They don't even know what they're driving. They don't know anything.
Yeah.
They just know that, oh, it's a
Yeah.
Mercedes, it's a Aston Martin,
Yes.
but they don't know anything about the car, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, cars is the love of it's the love of the car. I mean,
Yes.
it's our baby, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
an
Well, we
American
did a whole
thing.
podcast on that. Guys, go listen
Yeah,
to that podcast,
exactly.
Why Americans
Yeah.
Love Cars. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, Leon, this has been a really fun discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Give you an idea of why is it that Americans always seem to have so much more money or things, or why they look so rich, if you will, compared
Hmm.
to you or anybody else. Well, we just dispelled it. We just told you why. We just gave away the secret. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Please give it a thumbs up. You're still here. You're still listening. So I know you probably like the podcast. So please give it a thumbs up. And also, please subscribe. Click that subscribe button, click the bell, select all. That way you'll know when we upload future videos. What a pleasure, Leon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too. Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone. See you all later. Ciao.
Okay, bye bye.